There we go. Hello, everybody. I think this is live. Yeah, caught me just getting into the groove. Always in the groove. So, how are you? Good to see you. It's Thursday. Good to see everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you, moderators, and all you fabulous, I guess, tribe members is what I only know what to say. Favor be unto you, and may your life be the result of nothing missing, nothing broken. And thank you all. Hey, Karen, how are you doing? Susie Q, Bernadette, how are you? Speaking of people in the soul family, I always like because we got soul here. There ain't no doubt about it. We got soul. Um, and David Barry, 75. We need to get him up to 1,000 subscribers. I mean, go and check his channel out. The man is a creative genius. Again, just demonstrating how diverse this group really is, the treasures, the talents that we all have. And David Barry is, one of the leaders of, I think, this whole community. So, get over there and subscribe to him. It's got a fabulous YouTube channel. The guy is really, really creative. So I don't think he's in here, but anyway, David, we love you. And, you know, continue to do what you do best. So, hello, everybody. Shall we have our tea? I will say this. Having tea is truly one of the more, I think, enjoyable civilities of the human experience. Tea is, I don't know, it's just, there's something, almost spiritual to it, you could say. Yeah. But anyway, I enjoy it and hope you do too. So we got some fabulous, fabulous people in here. Karen with the Crystal Network, everything that she has done over there and how that continues to grow, and the individual talents that we have in this community. And I wanted to give another shout out to Marcia. Marcia is uh again a gifted, gifted spirit. Um, she sent me two things. I love this pendulum, folks. Check that out. I'll get it up to the camera. Is that just fabulous? I mean, seriously. So, spirits, how much do you love me? Bunches? Oh, yeah. Yep. They love us all. But this is really what I wanted to show y'all. We're reading about Tesla, and wow, like this is you're going to really enjoy it, folks. It gets really interesting along the way. I'm going to show you little tidbits of it, but anyway, so Marcia makes these beautiful um Egyptian rods. Folks, this stuff works. Lynn and I, we both used these last night, and I got to tell you, there is some power in these naturally generate electricity. I can put it up right on. I have a voltage meter, and they generate a um, electrical pulse charge. That's the word I was looking for. And when you do put these in your hand, as you can see here, copper goes in right, zinc goes into the left. And if you use, I tried this last night as I was going to sleep meditating, and wowza. So Marcia is just, wow, fabulous. Thank you. Thank you. And if y'all want some, go email her. She is a gifted, gifted alchemist. So rods of raw, yes, pure love ascension. That's what they are. And it's interesting because I could feel this buzzing that kind of just traveled up from my hands up into my arms into my body. Lynn, on the other hand, she had a distinctness of the rhythm of her heartbeat and the way that it was pulsing in there, and which makes sense. You know, that's why we're all different. We experience these things, but I can tell you, the Egyptians were onto something. They know what they be talking about. That's all I got to say. And Marsha, I just love this pendulum. I really do. This is just so freaking cool. Anyway, I digress. So, um, you know what? If we can get enough people that could get that, we could have like doing this private Zoom and this, you know, get into this psychic circle where everyone has their rods and see what happens. Marsha Price, that's it. That's who she is. Uh, Marsha, don't send me any bad emails. I'm sending you good vibes. And we just love her. I mean, she is just so talented. And it's just an honor to have the quality type of souls that are here. It's just exciting. And yeah, thank you, Karen. Um, so it works. It really does. I mean, it's amazing stuff. It's like the metatonic gold. I mean, you start combining these things and woof, off the top you go. So to happy birthday to anyone who's having one. I want to make sure that we recognize that out. And tonight on the Steiger Perspective over at artistfirst.com, 10 p.m. Eastern, figure your time zone from there. Another installment of Night World. Yeah, it's starting to get crazy now. You know, they only bite at night and they only get bigger as the night goes on. And it's a terrible thing then when you cannot keep your feet on the ground. And that's about all I'll say. If you've anyone who's ever read that book, you know what I'm talking about. It's a great book. And by the way, I pre-ordered this, but F. Paul Wilson is coming out with a new novel, new adventure story of Repairman Jack. So let's see what happens. He's now the inheritor. So let's see. Hello, Spirit Girl. How you doing? How you feeling over there? If we knew all the secrets of the Egyptians, if we only, that is so true. Hello, Julie Payne. AKA Morning Star. Hello, how are you? So, yeah, you see, Marcia, now Marcia is a nurse. So, you know, we owe her not only just this great gratitude as all those that have been out there on the front lines facing whatever it is we're facing, an unseen enemy, right? Uh, she does this out of the love of her heart. And so anyway, uh, she'll be saying, what you going to do now? You know, got these orders like this. But in any case, I digress. So let's see. Let's get in with this because this is, I don't know about you, but I do find it a very interesting story. We left off here, but I want to jump to someplace because I just want to show you what's coming down the line. And this one I found very interesting. I did not know that Tesla was a religious man. I did not know that he was a Christian. It seemed in his orientation, but that's what it appears to be. Give me 1 second. There we go. So, this is a message from Venus. This is his drawings of the Tesla scope for space communication. This is by his friend Arthur Matthews, who conceived it by Nikola Tesla in 1898 with the planet to communicate with the planet Venus. The first model built 1918, interesting date. Second model built by Arthur Matthews with Tesla 1938, rebuilt The 1938 model in 1947. Third completely new design model built by Arthur Matthews, 1967, adapting the micro miniature parts, thus reducing size to 6 feet long and 4 inches in diameter. See sketch of the 1967 model. So, what we're really going to get, I'm really jumping ahead here, but there's a reason for it. Apparently, you have a Q glass vacuum tube enclosed in wooden box, 9 foot long, 5-inch diameter. It's got an audio output, pickup, converters, automatic control chamber, gas chamber, converter, received energy control, dark room, and head. That's the Q glass filter. So this is the message that came from, I guess, the Venusians. Those who live on Venus, right? You're a Venusian? Yeah. Anyway, it says, we bring this same message to you in the hope that whoever receives it will extend it word for word to as many people on earth as possible. You cannot receive our message on your regular radio systems, but we hope that others will give due honor to Tesla and succeed in building his scope, by means of which we can pass our vital message in the dark days ahead. We cannot interfere with your destiny, which by God-given free will you have created for yourselves. Are y'all listening to this? We can only hope that some of you will listen to Christ asking God for wisdom. We have repeated this message for so many hundreds of years. Can we ever hope to see the people of earth learn and live by it? You should. It is your only hope, your only salvation. End of message. This is something the History Channel did not cover about Tesla. This is something the Discovery Channel completely missed. I wonder why. Now, I'm going to put on my conspiracist hat. So they're talking about a future. They gave us exactly what all of us should immediately have resonated with. We create this reality. No God, no higher being, no higher intelligence is going to interfere with the free will of man. Vitally important on that one. They saw dark days ahead. Well, it's interesting. We can only hope that some of you will listen to Christ. What is Christ's message? Love, not condemnation, love. They said they've been repeating this for some hundreds of years. Now, there is a theory. I did a whole video on this about 2.5, 3 years ago that says life can be sustained on Venus, but not on the terrestrial ground, but up in the atmosphere. Who knows? I just found that so interesting. And there's one other here I want to show you that we're really going to have fun with, because we'll get there when we visit this again. Maybe one, here it is. Let's get over here, because you're really going to dig this. Well, I didn't want to go that far, so I'll have to cut in. It's like, remember when you used to be at the proms and the dances? May I cut in? So we get in this discussion, and it says, in short, it makes everyone happy. I know it's like cutting in the middle of conversation. How then can the people of earth, weighed down by fears and anxieties, develop this gracious art of pleasantness? I just want to stop. We're an enlightened group here. If you are part of this community, then you are an enlightened spirit. When I brought this out and read this, it occurred to me, I never hear the word pleasantness. I don't hear the word pleasant. And apparently it is something that we have the ability to develop, to adapt to a reality of pleasantness for every person. Goes on to say, well, to break the acquired habits of many years brought about by the incomplete understanding of the true meaning of life, that's a heavy one, is not, I realized, an easy task. So may I, with love in my heart, Tesla had to be just a lover of humanity. What it would have been something just to be able to talk to the man. Suggest a few steps to develop a pleasant personality and urge those of you who are parents or teachers to pass on this invaluable knowledge to your little children. With schools closed around the world, parents, what an opportunity to reverse the indoctrination public schools do. 1, practice the art of smiling sincerely, not pretending, at work, at play, and particularly in your contacts with others. Be generous with your smiles. They cost you nothing but a slight movement of your facial muscles, and you will be amazed at what you receive in return. You know what, folks? This is more common sense than what is common in most people. 2, when you talk to others, smile at them and make pleasant remarks. Never miss an opportunity to pass on a genuine compliment. This is valuable therapeutic psychology, for it not only gives pleasure, but encourages the recipient to live up to the compliment. Wowza. 3, to be easy to get on with is the description of a noble characteristic. I like that. To be easy to get along with is the description of a noble characteristic. To please is not necessarily to have youth or beauty or even manners. Charm is something in voice or expression which makes you feel better, disposed to your race to look at or to listen to. We need not care whether pleasant people are highly educated. They do something far greater. They practically demonstrate the great theorem of the livableness of life. The livableness, excuse me. Well, I think both words would be appropriate. Livableness and livableness, if that is even a word. If it isn't, it is now. 4, how many well-meaning folk need warning to not let their good be evil spoken of and their principles discredited because the religion you profess seem in your practice of it unlivable and unlovable. You wish people to read something of faithful character in your example. Take care that they do not take you for a hypocrite. Way to go, Tesla. 5, to induce an admiring love for what is good by your conduct is an aim you will never reach if you are unpleasant, ungracious, unkind. Remember what Christ said, judge not, forgive men, give to him that asks of you, blessed are the peacekeepers, do good to them that hate you. And now, author, our dear friend, let me read a little verse which we of Venus learn. So according to Tesla, they learned this on Venus. Although it takes so many months to make a single year, yet far more quickly than you think, the months will disappear. The very centuries have wings. New years grow old and gray. The work which you intend to do, begin it, friend, today. So many months, so many weeks, but soon they will be past. There is but one short life to live. Each year may be the last. To yesterday there is no door. Tomorrow may not be. Today is yours, but nothing more belongs to you or me. Within a single fleeting hour, how many minutes lie? But even as you wait to count, will 60 moments fly? If you've a tender word to say, a kindly deed to do, suppose you do it just this day. I would if I were you. Wow. He goes on to write, thanks for the good advice, I said. I will do my best, but there are many questions which I would like you to answer. Time goes fast. Who would believe it? Almost 8 years since you were the last here. So there's an interesting thing. Apparently Tesla isn't dead. You know, that's all I can say. We'll get into this, but again, I'll just want to catch this last little bit here. Let me explain a little more about gravity. I thought this one was really interesting. Nothing new in what I can tell you. I think you have as much information about the subject as we have. But as you ask me, I tell you all that we of Venus know. Tesla absolutely believed he was not an earthling, that he was a Venusian. He wrote, gravity consists of two distinct parts: centrifugal force due to the planet's rotation, plus the force of natural attraction of the planet. If the attractive force of planet Earth could be stopped or counteracted, and the centrifugal force remained, all loose material on Earth, including air, water, and most buildings, would leave Earth forever and fly off into space. If the centrifugal force should also be stopped or counteracted and gravity made equivalent to zero, physical bodies would have no weight. The pressure that the upper strata of the Earth's atmosphere exerts on the lower strata would cease to exist. The gaseous air would expand and leave the Earth, followed by the water, which would vaporize. The moon, held in its orbit by the attraction of the Earth, would leave it, and many other drastic changes would occur. Okay, so we'll get back to where we were starting at. You got to admit, this guy is, he's different. That's all I can say. He's just different. So we pick right up here. There's where we, the guy was always getting in trouble too. That's what the amazing thing was about this dude, is that that's all in the comments. He was as much as you and I, just seemed like he just found bad luck at times. Let's continue. His younger life, it's telling me a lot about this man. Maybe the reason why no human has figured out what he meant by 369, I've read there's just as many thoughts, theories on that, yet I haven't found anyone who has definitively come forward and said that they have solved it definitively. But the more you think about it, the more this guy would seem like he may have not been of Earth. I don't know. All right, I continue. Among other things, I attained a unique distinction of champion crow catcher in the country. I have no idea what a crow catcher is. I'm assuming that this must be a sport of somehow. Maybe someone can enlighten me. My method of procedure was extremely simple. I would go into the forest, hide in the bushes, and imitate the call of the birds. Usually I would get several answers. In a short while, a crow would flutter down into the shrubbery near me. After that, all I needed to do was to throw a piece of cardboard to detract its attention, jump up, grab it before it could extricate itself from the undergrowth. In this way, I would capture as many as I desired. But on one occasion, something occurred which made me respect them. I had caught a fine pair of birds and was returning home with a friend. When we left the forest, thousands of crows had gathered, making frightful racket. In a few minutes, they rose in pursuit and soon enveloped us. The fun lasted until all of a sudden I received a blow to the back of my head, which knocked me down. Then they attacked me viciously. I was compelled to release the two birds and was glad to join my friend who had taken refuge in a cave. Hmm. In the showroom, there were a few mechanical models which interested me and turned my attention to water turbines. I constructed many of these and found great pleasure in operating them. The thing I see about Tesla is that he really enjoyed what he did. He had fun with it. I was thinking about this today. How many of you actually have fun doing what you do? The career you chose, the skill. Do you have fun doing it? If there's no fun in it, then why are you doing it? And if you say to make a living, well, to make something is more than to make a living. You can make a living pretty easily doing what you really enjoy to do. In fact, I know I'm getting off the topic here, but hey, why not? Uh, that's why they give the personality test, the Briggs-Myers, which none of them are actually really that accurate, but they do have a tendency to show propensity for the ability. But what I really have found in my life is that so few people enjoy what they do. I think maybe that's why we grow old. We lose the joy of a child. That zeal of life when we were in our 20s. We were invincible. It's just a state of mind, you know. Anyway, how extraordinary was my life in an incident may illustrate. My uncle had no use of this kind of pastime and more than once rebuked me. Man, isn't that the way adults are? Always putting down the kids, you know? I was fascinated by a description of Niagara Falls I had pursued and pictured in my imagination a big wheel run by the falls. I told my uncle that I would go to America and carry out this scheme. 30 years later, I saw my ideas carried out at Niagara and marveled at the unfathomable mystery of mind. Love this guy. I made all kinds of other contrivances and contraptions, but among those, the arbalest I produced were the best. My arrows, when shot, disappeared from sight, and at close range traversed a plank of pine 1 inch thick. Through the continuous tightening of the bows, I developed skin on my stomach much like that of a crocodile, and I am often wondering whether it is due to the exercise that I am able even now to digest cobblestones. Wow. And I mean, are we not finding out some of the most, okay, this is cool. Nor can I pass in silence my performances with the sling, which would have enabled me to give a stunning exhibit at the Hippodrome. And now I will tell of one of my feats with this unique implement of war, which will strain to the utmost credulity of the reader. I was practicing while walking with my uncle along the river. The sun was setting, the trout were playful, and from time to time one would shoot up into the air, its glistening body sharply defined against a projecting rock beyond. Of course, any boy might have hit a fish under these propitious conditions, but I undertook a much more difficult task, and I foretold to my uncle, to the minutest detail, what I intended doing. I was to hurl a stone to meet the fish, press its body against the rock, and cut it in two. It was no sooner said than done. My uncle looked at me almost scared out of his wits and exclaimed, Vanderata Sate. I think that says, get behind me, Satan. I believe that's probably what it loosely translates. And it was a few days before he spoke to me again. In records, however great, will be eclipsed, but I feel that I could peacefully rest on my laurels for 1,000 years. Well, that's a hell of a shot, if you tell me. Fish jumps up in the water. Here he comes out of a sling, slings his rock, hits the fish. The momentum gets so fast, it takes the fish against the rock and still has the momentum to cut the fish in two. That's talent. Chapter 3, how Tesla conceived the rotary magnetic field. Oh, cool. At the age of 10, I entered the real gymnasium, which was a new and fairly well-equipped institution. In the Department of Physics were various models of classical scientific apparatus, electrical and mechanical. The demonstrations and experiments performed from time to time by the instructors fascinated me and were undoubtedly a powerful incentive to invention. I was also passionately fond of mathematical studies and often won the professor's praise for rapid calculation. This was due to my acquired facility of visualizing the figures and excuse me a second, and performing the operation, not in the usual intuitive manner, but as in actual life. Up to a certain degree of complexity, it was absolutely the same to me whether I wrote the symbols on the board or conjured them before my mental vision. But freehand drawing, to which many hours of course were devoted, was an annoyance I could not endure. This was rather remarkable, as most of the members of the family excelled in it. Perhaps my aversion was simply due to the predilection I found in the undisturbed thought. Had it not been for a few exceptionally stupid boys who could not do anything at all, my record would have been worse. Folks, this is a great example. I mean, obviously, Nikola had a bad image of himself. This dude, I mean, I doubt if I'd like to know when he started dating girls. I mean, to me, it's like, if you're that inhibited, wow. But that may have been another reason for his brilliancy. Who knows? It was a serious handicap, as under the then existing educational regime, drawing being obligatory, this deficiency threatened to spoil my whole career, and my father had considerable trouble in railroading me from one class to another. In the second year at the institution, I became obsessed with the idea of producing continuous motion through steady air pressure. The pump incident, of which I have told, had set afire my youthful imagination, and impressed me with the boundless possibilities of a vacuum. I grew frantic in my desire to harness this inexhaustible energy, but for a long time I was groping in the dark. Finally, however, my endeavors crystallized in an invention, which was to enable me to achieve what no other mortal ever attempted. Imagine a cylinder freely rotable on two bearings and partly surrounded by a rectangular trough, which fits it perfectly. The open side of the trough is enclosed by a partition so that the cylindrical segment within the enclosure divides the latter into two compartments entirely separated from each other by an airtight sliding joints. One of these compartments being sealed and once for all exhausted, the other remaining open, a perpetual rotation of the cylinder would result. At least, so I thought. A wooden model was constructed and fitted with an infinite care, and when I applied the pump on one side and actually observed that there was a tendency to turning, I was delirious with joy. Not this guy. Mechanical flight was the one thing I wanted to accomplish, although still under the discouraging recollection of a bad fall I sustained by jumping with an umbrella from the top of a building. Of course. I mean, I don't know if the guy was just, a savant or if he was, a young Sheldon Cooper. It sounds like they may be synonymous with one another. Every day I used to transport myself through the air to distant regions, but could not understand just how I managed to do it. Now I had something concrete, a flying machine with nothing more than a rotating shaft, flapping wings, and a vacuum of unlimited power. Now, I don't know, so is he saying that he actually got himself there? This is, yeah, that's transporting, all right. That's Scotty beam me up. Anyway, from that time on, I made my daily aerial excursions in a vehicle of comfort and luxury as might have befitted King Solomon. It took years before I understood that the atmospheric pressure acted at right angles to the surface of the cylinder, and the slight rotary effort I observed was due to a leak. Through this knowledge came gradually, it gave me a painful shock. I had hardly completed my course at the Royal Gymnasium when I was prostrated with a dangerous illness, or rather, a score of them, and my condition became so desperate that I was given up by the physicians. During this period, I was permitted to read constantly, obtaining books from the public library, which had been neglected and entrusted to me for classification of the works and the preparation of catalogs. One day, I was handed a few volumes of new literature unlike anything I had ever read before, and so captivating as to make me utterly forget my hopeless state. They were the early works of Mark Twain, and to them might have been due to the miraculous recovery which followed. 25 years later, when I met Mr. Clements and we formed a friendship between us, I told him of the experience and was amazed to see that great man of laughter burst into tears. My studies were continued at the higher real gymnasium at Karlstad, Croatia, where one of my aunts resided. She was a distinguished lady, the wife of a colonel who was an old war horse having participated in many battles. Going back to Clements, I heard about his personality was that he was a man of laughter. Apparently, it seems like Tesla was healed because of Clement's stories. I still can remember Huckleberry Finn. Right there. The stories of, and if any of you ever been to Hannibal, Missouri, you'll know what I mean. I can never forget the 3 years I passed at their home. No fortress in time of war was under a more rigid discipline. I was fed like a canary bird. All the meals were of the highest quality and deliciously prepared, but short in quantity by 1,000%. The slices of ham cut by my aunt were like tissue paper. When the colonel would put something substantial on my plate, she would snatch it away and say excitedly to him, "Be careful. Nico is very delicate." I had a voracious appetite and suffered like a tarantula. Yeah, Tantalus, I guess. Okay. But I lived in an atmosphere of refinement and artistic taste, quite unusual for those times and conditions. The land was low and marshy, and malaria fever never left me while there, despite the enormous amount of quinine I consumed. Okay, maybe he had the virus. I don't know. Occasionally, the river would rise and drive an army of rats into the buildings, devouring everything, even to the bundles of fierce paprika. These pests were to me a welcome diversion. I thinned their ranks by all sorts of means, which won me the inevitable distinction of rat catcher in the community. Okay. At last, however, my course was completed, the misery ended, and I obtained the certificate of maturity, which brought me to the crossroads. This guy. During all those years, my parents never wavered in their resolve to make me embrace the clergy, the mere thought of which filled me with dread. I had become intensely interested in electricity under the stimulating influence of my professor of physics, who was an ingenious man and often demonstrated the principles by apparatus of his own invention. Among these, I recall a device in the shape of a freely rotable bulb with tinfoil coating, which was made to spin rapidly when connected to a static machine. It is impossible for me to convey an adequate idea of the intensity of feeling I experienced in witnessing his expositions of these mysterious phenomena. Every impression produced thousand echoes in my mind. I wanted to know more of these wonderful forces. I longed for experiment and investigation and resigned myself to the inevitable with an aching heart. Just as I was making ready for the long journey home, I received word that my father wished me to go on a shooting expedition. It was a strange request, as he had been always strenuously opposed to this kind of sport. But a few days later, I learned that the cholera was raging in that district. God. And taking advantage of the opportunity, I returned to Gospic in disregard to my parents' wishes. I don't know, was his parents trying to kill him or what? I don't know. It is incredible how absolutely ignorant people were as to the causes of this scourge, which visited the country in intervals of from 15 to 20 years. They thought that the deadly agents were transmitted through the air and filled it with pungent odors and smoke. In the meanwhile, they drank the infested water and died in heaps. I contracted the dreadful disease on the very day of my arrival, and although surviving the crisis, I was confident to bed for the 9 months with scarcely any ability to move. My energy was completely exhausted, and for the second time, I found myself at death's door. This dude had more, I don't know, things working against him, it seems like. They wanted him dead. In one of the sinking spells, which was thought to be the last, my father rushed into the room. I still see his pallid face as he tried to cheer me in tones belying his assurance. I don't get the idea his dad didn't like him, did he? Yeah. Perhaps, I said, I may get well if you will let me study engineering. You will go to the best technical institution in the world, he solemnly replied, and I knew that he meant it. A heavy weight was lifted from my mind, but the relief would have come too late had it not been for the marvelous cure brought through a bitter decoction of a peculiar bean. I came to life like another Lazarus, to the utter amazement of everybody. My father insisted that I spend a year in healthful physical outdoor exercise, to which I reluctantly consented. For most of this term, I roamed in the mountains, loaded with a hunter's outfit and a bundle of books. And this contact with nature made me stronger in body as well in mind. I thought and planned and conceived many ideas, almost as the rule Deleuze made. Excuse me. The vision was clear enough, but the knowledge of principles was very limited. In one of my inventions, I proposed to convey letters and packages across the seas through a submarine tube, a spherical container of sufficient strength to resist a hydraulic pressure. The pumping plant intended to force the water through the tube was accurately figured and designed, and all other particulars carefully worked out. Only one trifling detail of no consequence was lightly dismissed. I assumed an arbitrary velocity of the water, and what is more, took pleasure in making it high, thus arriving to the stupendous performance supported by faultless calculation. Subsequent reflections, however, on the resistance of pipes to fluid flow induced me to make this invention public property. Another one of my projects was to construct a ring around the equator, which would, of course, floated freely and could be arrested in its spinning motion by reactionary forces. Wow. Got to say one thing for Tesla. He never thought small, thus enabling travel at a rate at about 1,000 miles an hour, impractical by rail. The reader will smile. The plan was difficult of execution, I can bet. I will admit, but not nearly so bad as that of a well-known New York professor who wanted to pump the air from the torrid to the temperate zone, entirely forgetful of the fact that the Lord had provided a gigantic machine for this purpose. Okay, sitting here going, wow. Still another scheme, far more important and attractive, was to derive power from the rotational energy of terrestrial bodies. You gotta love this guy. I mean, yeah, I could see a dude being from Venus. I had discovered that objects on the Earth's surface, owing to the diurnal rotation of the globe, are carried by the same alternately in and against the direction of the translatory movement. From this result, a great change in momentum, which could be utilized in the simplest imaginable manner to furnish motive effort in any habitable region of the earth, of the world. I cannot find words to describe my disappointment when I later realized that I was in the predicament of Archimedes, who vainly sought for a fixed point in the universe. At the termination of my vacation, I was sent to the Polytechnic School of Graz. I think that's Styria, Austria, which my father had chosen as one of the oldest and best reputed institutions. Kept his promise. That was the moment I eagerly awaited, and I began my studies under good auspices and firmly resolved to succeed. My previous training was above the average due to my father's teaching and opportunities afforded. I had acquired the knowledge of a number of languages and waded through the books of several libraries, picking up information more or less useful. Then again, for the first time, I could choose my subjects as I liked, and a freehand drawing was to bother me no more. I had made up my mind to give my parents a surprise, and during the whole first year, I regularly started my work at 3 o'clock in the morning and continued until 11 at night. No Sundays or holidays excepted. As most of my fellow students took things easily, naturally I eclipsed all records. In the course of the year, I passed through 9 exams, and the professors thought I deserved more than the highest qualifications. Armed with their flattering certificates, I went home for a short rest, expecting a triumph, and was mortified when my father made light of these hard-won honors. That almost killed my ambition. But later, after he had died, I was pained to find a package of letters which the professors had written to him to the effect that unless he took me away from the institutions, I would be killed through overwork. Thereafter, I devoted myself chiefly to physics, mechanics, and mathematical studies, spending the hours of leisure in the libraries. I had a veritable mania for finishing whatever I began, which often got me into difficulties. On one occasion, I started to read the works of Voltaire when I learned, to my dismay, that there were close to 100 large volumes in small print, which that monster had written while drinking 72 cups of black coffee per diem. I'm sorry. I love this guy. It had to be done. But when I laid aside the last book, I was very glad and said, nevermore. Ah, my first year showing had won me the appreciation and friendship of several professors. Among these, Professor Rogner, who was teaching arithmetics subjects and geometry. Professor Paschal, who held the chair of theoretical and experimental physics, and Dr. Ali, who taught integral calculus and specialized in differential equations. This scientist was the most brilliant lecturer to whom I ever listened. He took a special interest in my progress and would frequently remain for an hour or two in the lecture room, giving me problems to solve in which I delighted. To him, I explained a flying machine I had conceived, not an illusionary invention, but one based on sound scientific principles, which has become realizable through my turbine and will soon be given to the world. Both Professor Rogner and Paschal were curious men. The former had particular ways of expressing himself, and whenever he did so, there was a riot, followed by a long and an embarrassing pause. Professor Paschal was a methodical and thoroughly grounded German. He had enormous feet and hands like the paws of a bear, but all of his experiments were skillfully performed with clock-like precision and without a miss. It was in the second year of my studies that we received the Garmor Dame from Paris, having the horseshoe formed of a laminated field magnet and a wired wound armature with a commutator. It was connected up to various effects of the currents were shown. While Professor Paschal was making demonstrations running the machine was a motor, the brushes gave trouble, sparking badly, and I observed that it might be possible to operate the motor without these appliances. But he declared that it could not be done and did me the honor of delivering a lecture on the subject, at the conclusion of which he remarked, Mr. Tesla may accomplish many great things, but he certainly will never do this. It would be equivalent to converting a steadily pulling force like that of gravity into a rotary effort. It is perpetual motion scheme, an impossible idea. But instinct is something which transcends knowledge. We have undoubtedly certain finer fibers that enable us to perceive truths when logical deduction and other willful efforts of the brain is futile. Oh, well, let's just drop it off there. What a guy. All right, folks. Only those who really are interested in Tesla will find this fascinating, but I got to tell you, the more I read about this man, the more I am convinced he was no ordinary soul, for sure. He had something. I didn't know what, but I hope to maybe gain some of it. When a person pins something that they write, they're transferring energy, thought, and I love this guy. I mean, he was thinking planets, harnessing the energy of a planet, and apparently not just one. Now that's remarkable. Yes, Pure Love Ascension, he was. I mean, and David Cass, I like to say that too, a being of higher intelligence. You know, it quite fascinates me to think when we say higher intelligence, I mean, you know, they say that man is of a higher intelligence. I think that's an oxymoron at times, but higher intelligence. And it shows to me that most people would have considered Tesla a nut. You know, he would have been, his eccentricities would have been non-appreciative. But it seems like there were those who appreciated his genius. And what genius. I tell you, I just love it. Hey, if you want the book, it's on PDF and you can get it. Man can take or give. Rocky Mountain High, isn't that the truth? All right, Rabbit, yeah. Heading to Phoenix, we'll stop by and say hi to Miss Trina there, Big Al. Good to see you, buddy. Thank you, Pure Love. Fact Builder, I'm here. Well, welcome. Hello, Robert V. Love to get you on sometime. David Castle, yes, and Bernadette, Lost in Space. So what was that, Karen? Queen of Courts, he was considered obsessive compulsive. I can see that. Yeah, I could really see that as well. You can tell it in his writings. I mean, he had a different writing style. I mean, when you're reading it, his conjectures on the way the sentence structure, it throws me off sometimes. And, you know, but then again, he's a brilliant mind and he's writing in a first person approach. It's very interesting. So anyway, we continue to learn. Wait till you see the spaceship. Yeah, he drew it out. The one that landed and picked him up. He's still alive. I don't know what they found in that hotel room in New York, But apparently, I don't know. Well, you're going to read it in the book. Apparently it was not him. May have been a clone of him, maybe a doppelganger. I don't know, but he showed the ship, and apparently we're going to get a much more education of what the fine people on Venus have to say to us Earthlings. It's genius, fascinating man. Yeah, Pamela, thank you. He is. I'm learning a lot from him. I mean, actually, I have a deep respect for the man, more than I ever had before. I got to tell you. I thought of Tesla before as this ambiguous individual who had apparently figured out, you know, the power of electricity, that the earth was in itself a natural generator of electricity. Now I'm realizing this man was so much more than that. I told y'all when Lynn and I were looking for a home here, we actually looked at the house down outside Colorado Springs where, he had built this house, and the basement, the way it was constructed, and it was built where it was at because of the type of mineral that is in the soil here in Colorado. Yeah, pretty weird stuff. All right, folks, see you tomorrow. Thank you for your time. Tune in tonight if you want to listen to what happens to the gang in Night World. Yeah, the bugs are getting bigger. All right. Well, thank you, Big Al. I appreciate you, my friend. You got zapped with one huge download. Boy, ain't that the truth? It is. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it. Hey, Kaz, how you doing, my darling? Love the music, this fine stuff there, girl. Suzanne, thank you. Yeah, Suzanne, very interesting comment. I would agree with you. I tell you, that's the problem I have with history. History is always fashioned by the victor. It's never fashioned by the underling. And apparently Tesla was also feared by many in our government. He was a targeted individual. And apparently there were some people in our government who wanted him dead. He had the ability to bring world peace. But what we got was World War II. Think about that. All right. Tina, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, T-Cat. Y'all, we'll see y'all tomorrow. This is good stuff. All right. Much love to you all. Peace. Bye-bye.